Has you ever really stopped to consider that the language you speak, its very structure, might not just, reflect your reality, but actually help build it? We talk about the power of words, sure, often in a kind of metaphorical way. But what if certain words, or maybe even whole ways of putting things together, actually unlock new ways of thinking, new paths for your brain? Think of it like this. The global scene knowledge, opportunities, connections, it's increasingly coded in one main language. And it's not just a communication tool, is it? You could argue it's almost like the operating system for a huge chunk of our interconnected world. We're talking, of course, about English, a language used by, over 1.5 billion people now. So today we're doing a deep dive, not just into why learning English is, useful, but how this specific language can be truly transformative, how it might reshape your thinking processes, open up doors you didn't even know were there, maybe even subtly change how you see yourself. We want to go beyond the usual stuff, explore those nuances, how English isn't just a skill you pick up, but maybe a catalyst for some pretty profound personal growth. So get ready to maybe rethink what you know about learning a language. Because what we're going to unpack today, well, it might just change how you see your own potential.
That's a really compelling way to start because you're right. We often we underestimate how deeply language shapes our thinking. It's almost architectural. You feel the impact of a single word instantly, don't you? Like impossible, it just slams a door in your mind. Or something like innovate, suddenly possibilities open up. Now, English, being this global lingua franca, it just amplifies that power massively. It takes it from just an individual thought right up to collective action, global opportunity. So it's really not just about getting your meaning across anymore. It's about actually shaping what's possible. And on a scale that's, pretty unique to our time.
Right, and that leads us straight into this first big idea, words shape reality. We've all felt that emotional hit from a phrase, haven't we? Someone says, wow, you're really talented at that. And you feel this lift, this shift inside. And the opposite, too, a harsh comment can feel almost like a physical blow. So it's obvious words aren't just noises. They carry serious psychological weight. But
Yeah.
what's really striking, I think, is how this goes beyond just feelings. It gets into our cognitive setup, our actual thinking structure.
Oh, absolutely. It runs much deeper than just feeling good or bad. Linguists, cognitive scientists, they've looked into this idea of linguistic relativity. Basically, the theory that the language we speak influences, maybe even determines, how we perceive and think about the world. Now, the really strong version of that theory, it's debated, but there's loads of evidence suggesting our vocabulary, our grammar, the concepts available to us, they definitely nudge our thoughts in certain directions. For instance, some languages might have really rich terms for, say, critical thinking or very specific emotional states that English might not capture in a single word. So when you learn these concepts in English, you're not just learning a word, you're getting a new tool for your mind, a new lens to look at things through.
That's a really powerful concept. So learning English words like resilience or disruption or maybe synergy, it's not just padding your vocabulary, it's potentially giving you new frameworks for thinking.
Exactly. Take resilience. It's often about bouncing back, sure, but it also implies adapting, growing because of hardship. If you internalize that concept, especially if your own language frames it differently, it kind of encourages a specific type of mental strength. Or think about the business world, which is so heavily driven by English. Words like disruption or scaling, they aren't just buzzwords. They represent whole strategies for innovation, for growth. By really getting those terms, you're kind of adopting a mindset that's highly valued in global business and entrepreneurship. It's like planting seeds in your mental garden. The more you use them, the more they start shaping your actions, your decisions.
I remember reading about how different languages frame things like time or even color in distinct ways.
Hmm.
Does English offer specific ways of framing ideas that might be harder to access otherwise?
Oh, it definitely does, especially in science and technology. English has soaked up and integrated a huge number of terms from Greek, Latin, other languages. This has created this incredibly precise, nuanced vocabulary for specialized fields. Like, think about the distinctions in scientific English between hypothesis, theory, model, and paradigm. Each one signals a really specific level of evidence, a different conceptual scope. Mastering these isn't just about translating words, it's about understanding the whole rigorous process, the philosophy behind scientific investigation, which is largely, encoded in English. This lets a learner really engage with global research, contribute to cutting edge stuff, participate in innovation on a much deeper level.
Wow, that sounds less like just learning a language and more like expanding your cognition.
It really is. And this even touches how we see our own effectiveness, our self efficacy. When you start consciously using powerful English words in your self talk, maybe thinking, I have the agency to handle this, or I'm actively building my competence here, you're not just being positive, you're actually leveraging the specific meaning, the weight of those words to maybe activate brain pathways linked to self-belief, to problem solving. It's subtle, but it's like a gentle reprogramming. And conversely, if you're constantly telling yourself in English, oh, I'm just not articulate, you might be unintentionally cementing that negative view, making it a self-fulfilling thing. The language you pick, even inside your own head, literally frames how capable you feel.
So we're really talking about more than just positive thinking here. It's about actively constructing our internal mental models through the language we choose to adopt. It just underlines how vital it is to be mindful, really mindful, of the English words we use day to day, both out loud and in our heads. What kind of cognitive reality are you building for yourself right now with the English words you're choosing? Okay, that brings us neatly to our next section. English as the language of connection. Picture yourself maybe stepping into a busy international airport, or attending a big research conference, or even just joining a global online group. What's the common thread? What lets people from totally different backgrounds actually talk to each other? Well, most of the time, it's English, isn't it? It's not just handy. It's pretty much the default way we connect globally now. It weaves together cultures, communities, people who might otherwise just stay separate.
Absolutely. We often call it a lingua franca, right? But its role is, I think, much more intricate than just being a common language. Think about the idea of English as an international language, EIL. This view recognizes that most English speakers today aren't native speakers, and they mainly use English to talk to other non-native speakers. This totally shifts the goalpost. It's not about perfectly mimicking someone from London or New York anymore. It's about achieving understanding, effective communication across cultures. And how people adapt English in these situations, maybe using simpler sentences, clarifying more, adopting shared phrases. That's fascinating. It's a living, changing system, not some fixed target you have to hit.
So it's less about sounding like a newsreader and much more about getting the hang of how global communication actually works on the ground.
Exactly, and that brings up a really important area. Interlanguage pragmatics. That's the study of how non-native speakers understand and use language in social situations. Like, how do you politely say no to an invitation in English? Or make a suggestion, or disagree without causing offense, especially when you're talking to people from different cultural backgrounds. A polite phrase directly translated from your language might sound abrupt or even rude in English, or maybe the other way around. Understanding these subtle differences, which you pick up through exposure and practice, is absolutely key for building real connections and frankly, avoiding awkwardness in diverse global settings. It's not just grammar, it's social skill.
That's a really crucial point, especially thinking about opportunities again. So going beyond just speaking English, how does this deeper understanding of EIL and pragmatics actually open doors?
Well, think about international research teams collaborating, or complex business deals being negotiated across borders, or global campaigns being organized. Success there isn't just about having a good test score, it's about being able to really listen to different accents, pick up on nonverbal cues, adjust your own communication style quickly, and maybe even help find common ground among people with very different ways of communicating. English, in that sense, becomes this incredibly flexible tool. Take a common business phrase like, let's touch base. Seems simple, but using it effectively needs an understanding of professional relationships, a non literal meaning, facilitating ongoing contact without being too formal. Mastering these kinds of sociolinguistic skills lets you really participate in global innovation, in solving big problems together.
It sounds like English gives you a sort of cultural fluency too, not just linguistic fluency. It reminds me of that story you mentioned from our sources about Daniel working in that hotel in Brazil, remember? He was nervous, using what he called broken English with an American couple. He made mistakes, sure, but they understood him, they appreciated the effort, and they ended up writing a fantastic review for him.
That's a perfect example of EIL in practice. The couple clearly prioritized understanding and connection over grammatical perfection. They valued his effort, and that's so important in areas like tourism, service industries, even online support where English is often the bridge. For Daniel, that initial imperfect interaction, it became a spark. It built his confidence, led to a promotion, eventually even international work. It just highlights that courage to try. We talked about sometimes that's the most powerful linguistic asset you have.
So English isn't just like a physical passport letting you visit new countries. It's almost a passport of words, giving you access to diverse social groups, professional circles, both online and off.
Precisely. And
Mhm.
it's a passport that, doesn't require a flawless visa application. It rewards effort, empathy, just the willingness to connect. So, the challenge I'd pose to you listening is to realize that this passport is basically already in your pocket. Every word you learn, every conversation you attempt is like getting another stamp in it. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start using it now. Who could you connect with today? Even with just simple English that could broaden your world. Maybe it's reaching out to someone you follow online from another country, joining an international forum, or even just understanding a newer perspective you wouldn't normally see. The chance to connect is everywhere.
That really is a powerful call to action. And it flows right into our next point, how English actively expands opportunities, opening doors to your future. Think about browsing global job sites or looking into international scholarships or even just reading documentation for open source software. What's the common denominator? What's that unspoken requirement underlying so many of these gateways? It's English. It really has become the language of global opportunity.
And it's not just a requirement. Often it's a huge advantage, a real differentiator. Look at the global job market. For roles in IT, engineering, science, international business, English proficiency isn't just a nice to have, it's often fundamental. Employers know that someone fluent in English can tap into global knowledge, work effectively with diverse international teams, manage projects across cultures, represent the company globally. And yes, studies consistently show it often leads to higher salaries, but it's more than that. It's about greater career options, leadership potential, access to more complex, more impactful work.
You're hitting on something bigger than just getting any job, aren't you? It's about getting a better job, one that's more integrated into the global picture.
Absolutely. And this plays out dramatically in education, too. The world's top universities, places like MIT, Oxford, Stanford, ETH, Zurich in Switzerland, they mostly operate in English. Getting access to their latest research, their advanced courses, their massive digital libraries, it usually requires strong English skills. Plus, just think about the sheer amount of high quality free educational content, online MOCs, expert webinars, tutorials. It's overwhelmingly in English. So this isn't just about getting a degree, it's about continuous learning, staying up to date with global standards, constantly improving your skills in a world that changes so fast. English basically unlocks this whole universe of knowledge that might otherwise be closed off.
And beyond those traditional routes like careers and education, what about the digital world? We spend so much time online now.
Right. The digital space is arguably where English's influence is most obvious and most impactful. The internet itself was largely built in English, and a huge proportion of its content, programming languages, technical guides, online communities, social media trends, podcasts like this one, expert tutorials, it's still primarily in English. So for anyone in fields like software development, data science, digital marketing, online content creation, English isn't just helpful, it's almost the native language of the field. It lets you join global open source projects, learn directly from the leaders in your area, reach a worldwide audience with your own stuff, even use AI tools more effectively since they're usually trained on and interact best in English. Your digital reach, your digital opportunities just explode with English.
So it's really about getting past geographical limits, engaging directly with global thinkers, global markets. That's a massive shift. It reminds me again of Lena from Egypt, who had that dream of an international career. Her English wasn't strong, she doubted herself, almost gave up. But through that daily practice, she built the confidence, the skills, got the job at the multinational firm, now travels, leads global projects.
Lena's story nails it. It's not just about collecting opportunities, it's about being ready to activate them when they appear. She didn't wait until her English was perfect. She committed to consistent, focused practice reading, speaking, building vocabulary. And that commitment didn't just improve her external skills. Crucially, it changed her internal beliefs about herself. And that inner shift, that's often the real key. Opportunities are always popping up, but only those who've built that linguistic bridge are really ready to cross it. Think about it. What specific opportunity right now feels just slightly out of reach because of language? English could be that bridge.
That idea of the internal shift, that's a perfect segue into our next section. Words that inspire building unshakable confidence. We often think of confidence as something you're born with, right? But really, it's more like a skill. It's a muscle you build through repetition, through deliberate effort. And right at the heart of building that muscle are the words we use, both the ones we say to ourselves and the ones we say out loud.
Yeah, what's really fascinating is how language connects with what psychologists call the affective filter. This is like a psychological barrier that can actually block you from learning if you're feeling anxious, stressed, or just don't believe in yourself. When we consciously use positive self-talk in English, we're actively working to lower that filter. So instead of thinking, ugh, my grammar is always wrong, maybe reframe it as, okay, I'm actively working on improving my grammar accuracy with each practice session. See how that shifts you from a fixed mindset, I'm bad at this, to a growth mindset, I'm learning. That shift is absolutely crucial for sticking with it and actually building confidence.
So it's not just chanting positive mantras then. It's a more strategic, almost metacognitive use of language to manage our own learning process.
Precisely. It's about engaging in self-reflection in English, asking yourself things like, okay, what was tricky about that conversation? Or which specific words did I stumble over? And then trying to formulate solutions or strategies, again, in English. That internal dialogue in the target language, it cements your understanding, it sharpens your problem solving, and it reinforces your identity as someone who can speak English even when things get tough. It goes beyond a generic, I can do it, to specific, actionable self-coaching. And critically, this also helps fight against fossilization, where errors just get stuck and become habits. Actively analyzing your mistakes in English, maybe thinking, I mispronounced that word, I need to work on the sound, creates a direct path for improvement.
That definitely reframes the muscle idea. It's not just about using words, but using words strategically to analyze and strengthen your linguistic abilities. I'm also thinking about the power of words from others, the feedback we get.
Oh, external encouragement is like, well, fertilizer for that confidence muscle, isn't it? When a teacher or a colleague gives you specific positive feedback, maybe, hey, your presentation flowed really well, and I liked how you used the phrase cutting edge research. It doesn't just feel good, it reinforces those specific skills. But it also brings up another important angle: the power of giving encouragement. When you actively support other learners in English, maybe telling someone, your ideas are really interesting and I completely understood what you meant, you're not just boosting their confidence, you're also strengthening your own positive internal story about language and connection. It creates this positive feedback loop within a learning community.
I remember that story about Ahmed from Egypt. He started off really shy, right? Avoided speaking in class because he was worried about his accent. But his teacher kept giving him small encouragements consistently. And when he finally did speak up, his classmates reacted positively. The teacher affirmed him. That transformed him. He went from being afraid to speak to eventually training others in public speaking.
Ahmet's journey is such a clear example. His initial block wasn't really a lack of language knowledge. It was that effective filter, the fear, the self-doubt. Those external words of encouragement acted like a powerful antidote. It just goes to show that confidence isn't about never feeling fear, it's about acting despite the fear. And often that action is fueled by validation and support from the people around you. And once that confidence muscle gets flexed, like with Ahmed, it starts radiating outwards. It impacts other parts of his life, clearly shown by his move into public speaking training.
So, to really build this confidence, it's not just about reciting positive things, it's about strategically engaging with the language itself.
Exactly. So, a practical daily thing you could do. Maybe choose three complex English adjectives relevant to your job or study, say, analytical, innovative, meticulous,
Yeah.
and then consciously weave them into your internal monologue or maybe a short written reflection about your day. Like, today I approached that task with an analytical mindset, looking for innovative ways forward while ensuring meticulous execution.
Mm.
Hmm. See, that's not just affirmation, it's training your brain to frame your professional self in English. And equally, maybe keep a brief progress log in English. Just note down moments where you successfully used a new phrase or navigated a tricky conversation. Making your growth concrete like that really solidifies those small wins. These are conscious strategic uses of language to build real lasting confidence.
Okay, but every journey has its bumps, right? And learning English is definitely no exception. This brings us to overcoming barriers with communication, turning obstacles into stepping stones. Learners inevitably hit walls moments where grammar feels like a maze, pronunciation seems impossible, or subtle cultural cues just fly over your head. But these aren't roadblocks. They're actually crucial points in the journey. And the way forward isn't to avoid them, but to tackle them head on, using communication itself as the tool.
That's right. And one really common barrier is phonological interference, basically. How your native language's sounds affect your English pronunciation. Now, it's not just about having an accent, which, as we've said, is part of who you are. It's more about being understood clearly, especially when you're trying to convey complex ideas. Telling the difference between similar sounds like ship and sheep, or mastering tricky consonant combinations that don't exist in your first language, these can be real hurdles to clear communication. So, a strategic approach here isn't just don't worry, just speak. It might involve targeted phonetics work, maybe using apps that give visual feedback on mouth position, or doing shadowing exercises mimicking native speakers to really internalize the rhythm and intonation.
That's a much more concrete way to deal with pronunciation issues. What about those tricky grammar points that go beyond the basics?
Yeah, for learners who are already pretty advanced, the challenge often lies in mastering the subtleties like the perfect tenses, those complex conditional sentences, or intricate sentence structures. This is where understanding your own interlanguage comes in, that unique system you develop that's somewhere between your native tongue and English. Making mistakes is totally normal here. But the key is to spot patterns in your errors and figure out why they're happening. For instance, if you find yourself constantly leaving out articles, a day, or struggling with modal verbs, could, should, might, that points to a specific area needing focused attention. Maybe through exercises that put these structures in real context or getting explicit explanations of why they work the way they do, not just memorizing rules, it's moving beyond I go store yesterday to fixing the underlying system gaps.
And what about the cultural side? Beyond obvious idioms, are there deeper communication styles that can cause problems?
Oh, definitely. Think about things like speech acts, how we do things with words like requesting, apologizing, complaining, and politeness strategies. For example, how do you make a polite request in a professional email? In some cultures, being very indirect might be the norm, while in others, a more direct approach is expected and seen as efficient. English, particularly in business or academic settings, often values a kind of directness softened with specific politeness markers. Could you possibly, right? Would you mind if? Getting these wrong can make you seem unintentionally rude or maybe too hesitant. So, learning about intercultural communication, maybe even analyzing real conversations to see how people navigate these things in English, is super important. It's not just the words, it's the social dance behind them.
That's a really sharp insight. It's not just what you say, but how you frame it within cultural expectations. It makes me think of Sofia again, the student from Argentina in Canada, remember, who accidentally ordered a sheep instead of a cheap coffee. People laughed. She felt embarrassed, sure. But then, crucially, she decided to laugh along and learn from it.
Sophia's reaction is perfect. She turned a potentially blocking moment of embarrassment, an effective barrier, into a practical learning opportunity. Her resilience was key. But for an informed learner, the next step isn't just laughing it off, it's actively thinking, okay, what happened there? Ah, the vowel sound I in sheep is long, different from the short and cheap, right? I need to practice distinguishing those sounds. That kind of self-awareness, that meta-level thinking, turns an awkward moment into a concrete step forward linguistically.
All right, so it's about reframing challenges not as personal failures, but as useful data for targeting your learning. What are some other advanced strategies listeners could use to navigate these trickier barriers?
Well, besides the targeted phonetics and grammar work we mentioned, advanced learners could explore corpus linguistics. There are tools online that let you search huge databases of real English text and speech. This shows you how words are actually used, common phrases, collocations, how language changes in different situations, things you might miss in a textbook. It helps make your English sound more natural, less, well, textbook-ish. Another powerful technique is deliberate practice. This means isolating a specific skill, maybe giving a short, structured opinion out loud, recording yourself, and then analyzing it, perhaps against a checklist or rubric. It's very focused. And finally, don't underestimate peer feedback with other advanced learners. Setting up sessions where you explicitly discuss and correct each other's more subtle errors in English can be incredibly effective. The overall aim is to systematically break down these barriers, turning them from frustrating obstacles into clearly defined steps on the path to mastery.
Okay, so we've talked about the power, the connections, the opportunities, the confidence, but how do we actually make it happen? This leads us to the daily practice of powerful words, the engine of transformation. Because understanding all this is one thing, right? But bridging that gap between knowing and doing comes down to consistent daily effort. It might not sound glamorous, but that daily commitment is what really drives the change.
Yeah, a common trap, even for advanced learners, is thinking you need these huge blocks of study time every day, hours and hours. That often just leads to feeling overwhelmed, putting it off, or burning out. But actually, what's really effective for high-level language learning is consistent, deliberate practice, even if it's in shorter bursts. Think about tools like spaced repetition systems, apps like Anki or Memrise. They're designed for vocabulary, grammar, whatever you feed them. They show you information just before you're likely to forget it, based on cognitive science. This makes recall much more efficient over the long term, with relatively little daily time needed. Seriously, 15 minutes of focused work with an SRS can be way more effective than passively reading for an hour once a week. It's about using brain science to your advantage.
So it's about smart, efficient practice, not just logging hours. What are some specific daily practices that are optimized for someone who's already got the basics down?
Okay, one key concept is managing your comprehensible input and output. For input, don't just randomly consume English. Actively look for stuff that's just a little bit challenging for you, maybe one step above your current comfort zone. Linguists call this I plus one. This could be academic lectures, specialized podcasts in your field, maybe a complex novel. That slight stretch really pushes your understanding. Then for output, you need to apply what linguists call the output hypothesis. This means forcing yourself to produce language, speaking, or writing. Why? Because it makes you notice where the gaps in your knowledge are. It forces you to rethink and restructure how you use the language. So this could mean things like writing summaries of complex articles you've read in English, joining online discussions or debates in your field, or even just mentally narrating your day's activities in detail, consciously trying to use new vocabulary or grammar you're working on.
That sounds much more active and strategic than just, say, listening to English songs.
hmm
You're talking about really engaging with the language.
Exactly. Another really powerful daily habit is focusing on collocation acquisition. Don't just learn single words in isolation. Learn them in the phrases and chunks they naturally appear in. So instead of just learning decision, learn make a decision, reach a decision, a crucial decision, a tough decision. This makes your English sound much more natural and fluent. You can use online tools like concordancers or collocation dictionaries to find these common pairings. Just consciously trying to use maybe 2 or 3 new collocations each day in your speaking or writing makes a massive difference over time.
And what about writing? How can we make that a powerful daily practice?
Well, beyond just keeping a simple journal, you could try more targeted writing, like writing short opinion pieces or summaries of news articles. Pick an English article on a topic that interests you, something a bit complex. Read it carefully. Then write a brief summary or offer your own reasoned viewpoint on it. And while you're writing, make a conscious effort to use some of the new words or grammar structures you noticed in the article or that you're currently learning. Afterwards, you could use tools like Grammarly, or even better, get feedback from a peer or tutor to help refine it. This really connects your reading input and writing output, cementing both comprehension and production skills. It's about actively wrestling with complex ideas using English.
This really paints a picture of continuous linguistic self-improvement. It reminds me of Daniel from Poland again, the guy who felt too busy. He committed to just 10 minutes a day, remember? A podcast while making coffee, 3 sentences written before bed. Seemed tiny. But after 6 months, boom, huge improvement in vocabulary, confidence, understanding.
Daniel's story really highlights the power of habit over sheer motivation, doesn't it? He didn't wait to feel inspired. He built a small, consistent routine he couldn't easily skip. For learners who are already knowledgeable, this translates to weaving advanced practice into your existing daily life. Maybe it's listening to an academic talk during your commute, reviewing flashcards on your phone during a break, consciously constructing a complex English sentence in your head while you're doing dishes. The key is that consistency and the deliberate nature of the effort. Every small, focused act of engagement strengthens those neural pathways, pushing you closer to that feeling of fluency, of mastery.
So the real takeaway isn't just practice daily, it's practice strategically, practice consistently, and make it an efficient, integrated part of your everyday thinking and routine. Okay, we've journeyed through how English shapes our thinking, connects us globally, opens up opportunities, builds our confidence, and how daily practice makes it all stick. Now let's bring it all together. The ultimate point here. English is not just a language. It's a profound tool for transforming your entire life.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating at this level is thinking about bicultural or even multicultural identity. As you become really proficient in English, you're not just adding a skill set, you're actually expanding who you are. You
Huh.
develop this ability to navigate different cultural worlds, to understand and even articulate different ways of seeing things. This mental flexibility, this cultural empathy, it can lead to a richer, more nuanced sense of self, one that's not just tied to a single language or culture. You start to become, in a real sense, a global citizen with a more adaptable inner world.
So it's not just about what you can do with English, but who you actually become through the process of mastering it.
Exactly. And you see this transformation in very real ways. Think about global innovation ecosystems. English is the language of science papers, tech conferences, startup funding pitches. By mastering English, you shift from being just a consumer of this global knowledge to potentially being a contributor. You
Wow.
could access international funding, collaborate on cutting edge research, pitch your own disruptive idea to a global audience. That level of participation completely changes your professional path from local to global, from just receiving information to actively creating it.
That hints at an even deeper cognitive shift, beyond just being able to communicate better.
It really does. Learning English, especially to an advanced level, demonstrably enhances cognitive functions. Things like your ability to solve problems, switch between tasks efficiently, think critically. When you're constantly navigating the complexities of another language system, your brain is literally building new connections. You're always engaged in this low-level linguistic problem solving, finding the right word, structuring a tricky sentence, catching subtle meanings. This constant mental workout translates into better cognitive flexibility overall, affecting all areas of your life. It can make you a more adaptable, creative, and sharper thinker. That cognitive upgrade is one of the most lasting and widespread benefits of really mastering a language.
Let me bring in that final story, which I think powerfully illustrates this ultimate transformation. Lena from Egypt started with weak English, loads of self-doubt. But she committed to that daily strategic practice, reading articles, talking online, focused vocabulary work. A year later, not only lands that great job at the multinational firm, but now she's leading international projects, traveling, even inspiring others to learn.
Lena's journey is just perfect because it shows the real impact isn't just the external stuff, the job, the travel, it's the internal change. Her courage, her discipline, her dedication, all channeled through learning English. They fundamentally reshaped her belief in what she could achieve. She overcame that initial doubt, built resilience, developed adaptability qualities that now clearly make her a leader. English was the vehicle, but her transformed mindset was the driving force.
So for you listening, this whole journey of transformation doesn't start way off in the future. It starts right now. With every word, every phrase, every small, deliberate practice you undertake today.
Precisely. Think of English as your personal bridge to the future version of yourself. It's a tool to get past barriers, not just geographical or professional ones, but those psychological walls, too. It's a way to actively shape your cognitive skills, expand your sense of identity, and ultimately to speak to yourself differently, affirming your growth, nurturing your biggest ambitions, and creating a life that's richer, more connected, maybe more exciting than you currently imagine. The transformation isn't a destination. It's this ongoing process, this continuous evolution.
So after this time dive, what does this all really mean for you? You've heard how English can be more than just words. It's a tool for your mind, a bridge to the world, a key to opportunity, a builder of confidence. And you now understand that strategic daily practice is the engine that makes it all happen.
Which naturally leads to the important question for you, our listener. What now? It's time to put this into action. Take a moment today and ask yourself, okay, what specific cognitive skill or area of knowledge will I explore using English today? How will I engage with English, even for just a few minutes, specifically to connect with someone or dip in my own understanding? Which strategic practice will I commit to today, knowing it's building not just my language ability, but my future self? Remember, real transformation rarely waits for perfection. It starts with courage, it's built on consistency, and it requires that deliberate commitment to keep growing. So engage critically with English content, listen actively, speak boldly, even if imperfectly, write reflectively, think in English whenever you can, practice strategically every single day. Use your words consciously to build a reality filled with deeper connections, greater opportunities, and that solid, unshakable belief in yourself.
Your journey really does start right now. Pick one focused action. Maybe internalize a new set of related vocabulary, try out a more complex sentence structure and conversation, or consciously analyze a recent communication for ways to improve. Let that be the very first precise step towards the life you envision. The power's in your words. It's in your voice. It's in your conscious decision to begin today. Your transformed world is waiting. Speak English. Redefine your reality.